Okay, there was a couple of requests to make a video kind of going over the documents to kind of explain their meaning as you guys are writing this DBQ. So let's do that really quickly. First off, if you look at the prompt, you are evaluating the relative importance of different causes for the expanding role of the U.S. in the world in the period from 1865 to 1910. So basically what it's saying is the U.S. is expanding its role in the world. That's not really one of the things you're making an argument about. You are making an argument about why. Why exactly is this role expanding? What are the reasons for it? So my thesis statement probably would include a number of reasons, like for nationalistic reasons, economic reasons, that sort of thing, for sure. So let's look at document one. This is kind of talking about the expanding role because of the purchase of a lot of land from Russia. If you haven't kind of figured this out from the document, really it's the islands surrounding like Alaska and Alaska. Alaska's the big deal in this purchase. So those people were able to stay Russian citizens if they so chose, and they could go back to Russia. If they wanted to stay where they presently lived, they would automatically become U.S. citizens. Is kind of what this was saying. The situation that kind of presents itself is that the United States obviously adds a tremendous amount of land. They acquire a tremendous amount of natural resources. So if you're saying that we've expanded for economic reasons, well, this is going to expand. This is going to greatly increase our amount of natural resources. There's a lot of oil in Alaska, so that's a big deal. One of the big reasons they purchased, or one of the main benefits, is this is kind of the first foray into like we're going to expand internationally. We've kind of gone almost outside the continental U.S. Kind of our little footprint. We've gone from the Atlantic to the Pacific to now that area kind of up above, kind of off the western part of Canada. Now that's the United States. So we're greatly expanding. The other thing is it got rid of a foreign power on North American soil. So we kind of say goodbye to the Russians for being stationed in North America. Kind of a big deal. So document one is all about that acquisition of power. Document two by Josiah Strong, Our Country is Its Possible Future and Its Present Crisis. Josiah Strong talks a lot about the right of the United States to expand. He talks about some of the problems that different European and Asian countries are having with overcrowding. During this time period, one of the reasons for expansion in Europe and Asia was they wanted to find a place to put people. So they were trying to expand into different colonies for their empires just to get more land to house people. Josiah Strong also talks about it's kind of the right of the United States and the responsibility of the United States to expand, to basically extend like democratic ways, basically talking about the Anglo-Saxon religion and race, has a responsibility to kind of train and bring people up that they're, in essence, they're superior and they need to spread that superiority to kind of make everybody else, as he calls it, the highest civilization. He wants everybody else, we're going to try to make everybody else the highest civilization. So he's advocating for expansion for that reason, for religious reasons, for racial reasons, and for spreading democracy, for kind of like we're doing things the right way. That's kind of what he's saying. Document three is advocating for expansion for a different reason. This is Alfred Mahan, who was all about increasing the size and the strength of our Navy. So he talks all about the fact that we have a really strong Navy, as does other world powers like in particular, he mentions Great Britain, who owes her wealth and greatness basically to their maritime power, which is their Navy. So he's saying that, hey, if we want to be like Great Britain, we want to be strong, we want to be powerful like that, we want to be the greatest country in the world, we need to increase the size of our Navy. He's also saying without a strong Navy, that it's going to be tough to assert our power in the Caribbean, in Central America. A lot of the U.S. imperialist kind of aims were really at Latin America, Central America, South America. So a lot of that, to do that, he said we're going to have a pretty strong naval presence. So he's advocating for strengthening the size and the quality of our U.S. Navy. That's kind of what he's doing there. Document number 4 is a political cartoon. One which I like, and I probably, if I were writing this DBQ, this is one of the documents I would probably pick. Basically, again, it's from the imperialist point of view, like where it's basically William McKinley, who's the president right around the time of the Spanish-American War. And as we win the Spanish-American War, we do get Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Philippines kind of are all within that deal. Guam, I believe, as well, the Sandwich Islands. So William McKinley basically is kind of serving up this imperialist idea of saying, Uncle Sam, which one do we need to make a U.S. territory first? Like, which one are we going to go get? Like I said, in the Treaty of Paris in 1899, after we win the Spanish-American War, we do get these as possessions. Before we do that, remember we issued something called the Teller Amendment that basically said we would not make Cuba a colony of the United States. There's a little bit of a contradiction of our themes in the United States of self-government, democracy, and imperialism. Like, there's a conflict there. So before we ever enter in the Spanish-American War, we issued something called the Teller Amendment that said we're not going to make Cuba an American colony. We're not going to take away its freedom and its independence. So we're fighting Spain for the noble purposes of helping out a friend, basically. So when they get Cuba in the Treaty of Paris after the Spanish-American War, because of the Teller Amendment, we give kind of Cuba back to Cuba. We kind of grant them their independence. We do kind of take control of the Philippines. We take control of Puerto Rico. We take control of the Sandwich Islands, Guam, all of those. So this political cartoon is basically saying, where do we go? Like, we've decided we're going to become an imperialist country, which are we going to add to our empire first. And that's kind of the outcome. We said Puerto Rico still is a territory. Philippines, eventually we grant independence to. I think in 1946, right after World War II. So, in Cuba, like I said, we acquired it ever so briefly, but we stated prior that we were going to give it back, and we did. So, all right, document 5 has to do with imperialism because of kind of a frightening position other countries were taking. Other countries, remember, were grabbing at power. They're trying to become these huge empires. We particularly had a fear of Russia and Japan. So the open door policy was an open door policy in China, where a lot of Asian countries, Russia was looking at China as kind of a sitting duck. China during this time, and this is, people kind of forget this happened, China was really weak. China really didn't get involved in the world. They hadn't industrialized at all. They were really ripe for the take. I mean, people could have picked them off, and everybody knew how valuable China was. So countries like Japan was like, to make China ours, we could have a heck of a country here. Like, we can be really strong. Others, like the United States, Great Britain, were really wary of, like, if these countries take over China, wow, they're going to be big, they're going to be powerful, and they might take the lead in the world and become kind of a force to be reckoned with that we don't want to have to reckon with. Okay, so John Hay was the U.S. Secretary of State. He issues what's known as the second open door note. First, he didn't feel like the United States was getting a very fair treatment in China, and he really just wanted everybody to be able to trade freely in China, with China. So that's the open doors. Everybody can openly trade with China. And he also is advocating for fair and equal trade for everybody. So he's obviously looking at it from the U.S. perspective of we want in, but he's also looking at it from the world perspective of we don't want Japan and Russia or really anybody else to take over China. So we want to protect China as an independent country because we don't want to have another country annex them and all of a sudden that country is a force to be reckoned with. That would be no good. Document 6, another political cartoon, has to do with the Philippines and the Philippines falling under U.S. control. If you read down here, it said it's up to them. Uncle Sam to the Filipinos, you can make your choice. So he's holding a school teacher and then he's holding a soldier. Basically, the Filipinos were not excited to have anybody come in and take over their country, aka the U.S. They didn't really want us here. As the U.S. kind of said, like, you can have your pick. Do you want us to come in with guns and we can take it over forcefully? Or would you like to come in and we can do this kind of together and we're going to educate you and we're going to try to, like, help you out the best you can? So you can either, again, use the school teacher, which is going to do like a more peaceful method, or we can bring in soldiers and we can do it the hard way. So that's kind of what it's saying. Again, this is from the point of view, again, of an imperialist, like we're taking over countries. This shows our kind of military and international might, that all of a sudden we've expanded into another region with the Philippines. Like I mentioned earlier, eventually we do give the Philippines their independence in 1946. I will say we do go in and we do a lot of educating. We do have to do a little bit of fighting. But for the most part, we're pretty well received. And we do a pretty good job of treating the Filipinos pretty fair, and kind of moving them towards self-government and independence. So good for us. And last and certainly not least is my man Teddy Roosevelt, giving one of his messages to Congress. And he is basically talking about Latin America. And remember, from a perspective standpoint, Latin America was seen as this point, or this place in the world that really was kind of the prime spot for the U.S. to kind of acquire territories, do business, whether it's trade or buy natural resources, or if it's again go in and take them as a colony. So we have that at our disposal. Theodore Roosevelt was basically saying he advocates sometimes fighting is necessary, creates a longer term peace, and he basically says that. Again, we are going to do business with Latin America. Like, we have a vested interest in what goes on there, whether it's just to promote trade and our business interests, or if we forcefully have to go in and do that. And he kind of says, like, if we go in and they take care of business, they do all the right things, and they take care of their financial responsibilities, then we're going to have no problems. They're not going to have to fear for interference with the U.S. But he also says if there's chronic wrongdoing or an impotence with results in a general loosening of the ties of civilized society, so if they do something wrong, if they don't conduct themselves the way a civilized society should, if they don't keep their economic house in order, pay their bills, then the U.S. is going to go in there and you're going to see how powerful we really are. We're going to go in there, we're going to help you forcefully. Some context of this, remember Theodore Roosevelt tried to advocate for buying a part of Panama to construct the Panama Canal. The Panamanian government said no. So Theodore Roosevelt basically said, like, well, I'm going to support this group of people that wants to overthrow the Panamanian government with some money and some supplies. And he basically, like, mounted a revolution in Panama so that there was this group that came in and overthrew the Panamanian government, which was very eager then to make a deal with Theodore Roosevelt for the land to construct the Panama Canal. So his idea of walk softly and carry a big stick, that diplomacy was basically saying, like, hey, if you do what we want, we're going to be friends. If you don't, we're pretty tough, and we're going to show you how tough we are. So that's what Document 7 was really saying. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. If not, I will see you soon.